Powell, Manitowoc County has a question on the ballot about the dark store legislation. My question for the challengers is, do you support legislation that ends the dark store loophole and the Walgreens legislation? And my question for the incumbents are, there's three people in the state who stopped this conversation. Robin Moss, Scott Fitzgerald, and Scott Walker. The conversation was going well. I know both Senator Lemieux and Senator Tittle were co-sponsors of this legislation. There were 66, I believe, Assembly members who co-signed this legislation, which would have passed it bipartisan level. So my question to the incumbents are, if you supported it, how did you urge your leaders in the Assembly and the Senate to move forward with this? Since you're our representatives, how did you support it? How did you push them to bring a bill to the floor for a vote?
All right, Mrs. Strada, and I guess Mr. Welton, and then of course the incumbents will have an opportunity if they so choose. Mrs. Strada.
Great, that's a great question. And it's actually a question that I'm getting from a lot of the people in the community when we're going out talking to people. They want to know what the dark store bill is. And yes, Paul Tittle is a co-author to that bill. Supporting, it's just, to me, it's just heartening again how we're not having the best interests of our community at hand. It's unfair. We're talking about not raising taxes, but yet on the other hand, we are giving a tax break to places like Menards and places like Lowe's that are these big box stores, and yet on our tax dollar, we're having to pay more as homeowners in our own community to have these stores here. To me, that's not good business. I think the problem that I have, and I keep saying that people before politics, and it's not just a saying, because we need to make sure that everybody in our community not only know what this bill means. I mean, when we hear about dark store, a lot of the people that are going out to vote, a lot of first-time voters, they don't even know what that means. And there's so much misinformation out there and not enough information on where our tax dollars are going. And I think we need to move towards a more transparent government. And we can't keep saying that we support one thing and yet we're voting a different way. And this is why I keep continuing to urge the people in our community that you need to look at the voting records because they're clear and they're public. That's public information. You need to look at them. I personally don't think that companies that are here, big box stores here, should be getting a tax break to be here on our dollar. When we're struggling to survive, we're working 3 or 4 jobs to get by. We can barely put food on our table, and yet we're strapped with an extra cost for them being in our community.
Yes, I support closing the dark store loophole. I think this is really important. You know, there's 3 lawsuits, or excuse me, I think it's 3 lawsuits. There's 3 Walmart centers in Sheboygan County that we would lose hundreds of thousands of dollars of local tax revenue, which would be going towards roads and in school investing in education and infrastructure. This is one where Senator Lemieux and I are in agreement. I thank you for your support of that bill and bringing that forward. Wisconsin needs to move forward on this one and make sure that we're treating everybody fairly in this environment because we do put tax dollars ahead in infrastructure changes and all of these other pieces to bring these stores to our communities, and so we should expect a fair assessment on the value of that property to make sure that we've got the resources to continue to support our communities.
Yes, not only was I a co-author of both of the bills that deal with dark stores and the triple net lease agreements with Walgreens. I also voted for it in committee. When we had our committee hearing, WFC, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, was testifying against the bills, and I challenged them during the hearing. I supported, I kept asking leadership to schedule votes on the bill. They did not, even though we sent it out to committee. And that is the prerogative of leadership, unfortunately. I think we would have had enough votes, well, obviously we would have had enough votes to pass it, so that was very unfortunate. Additionally, there was a meeting that I had in my office, and I had the lobbyists from Walmart, WMC, Shopko, Walgreens, the Wisconsin Restaurant Association, all trying to pressure me to back off of my support of this bill. And I told them I'm going to do what's right for the property taxpayers and what's right for my community. So I kept pushing forward, as you know, because we were working on the bill. and Mayor Vanderstein and all the local mayors. And as Kyle mentioned, all 3 Walmarts in Sheboygan County are suing over their tax assessments right now. Not only is it a burden on the property taxpayers, the homeowners in the area, because it's a shift from businesses to the property taxpayers, it's also a burden on these small townships who have to continuously fight these lawsuits. So we need to bring clarity to the law and stop these lawsuits from happening, because the town of Sheboygan should be having to use taxpayer money to defend these lawsuits. And as they keep growing and progressing, these lawsuits are going to keep on increasing. So we need to make sure that we get this fixed. I'm hopeful we'll get it fixed next session. I'm fairly confident we will, and I'll keep pushing for it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely, Justin. You and I have had many conversations about the dark stores that we talked about basically trying to close that loophole. And I was there at the press conference. I was there at the writing of the bill. I was there when I said, yes, this is great, because it's otherwise you put an undue burden upon local homeowners. And I think that's one of the worst things you could possibly do. I too kept telling my leadership, including Majority Leader Representative Steineke out of the Appleton area, and I said, listen, we need to get this thing done, we need to get it fixed. And as far as why they don't, I have a tendency to sometimes bump heads with my own leadership, and when I do, it happens that maybe then some of my bills don't even actually get scheduled, because I ran into that once before, where one of my bills that I thought very important, in fact, they had a meeting with me and asked me, what is a bill that you really want to get done before the end of session? That bill did not get scheduled, and they said it was an error. I'm not sure illegal. I think it was on purpose, but I think I will continue, to fight for the taxpayers. I talked about one guy, and some of you have heard it, and maybe when you heard it on the radio, there was a gentleman that I met when I first was running in 2012, and I'll make up his name as Kyle. I always usually use the person right next to me. On the radio, it was Brian Gordon, but anyhow, so Kyle, this older gentleman, had lived in his house for over 50 years. He lived on Social Security. That's all he had for an income. He had about $900 a month that he got in Social Security. And this is what he was telling me. He built that house 50 years ago. Now it takes 1/3 of his income, because his tax bill is almost $3,600 a year. It takes almost 1/3 of his income, $300 a month, in order to live in his own home. And I think that's the one thing that we need to do, is we need to make sure that we're protecting the homeowners like the Kyles of the world, to make sure that they can still stay in their home. Because as they get older, they shouldn't have to be taxed out of their own home. And so I'll always be cognizant of standing up for the taxpayer.